G'day, Sachi. It's nice to be back in the pod studio.
It is indeed, with our nice big fluffy microphones in front of us.
That's right. Well, today we're going to do something really unconventional.
Radical, in fact.
Yeah, because this is not our normal, obviously, on garden design theme. But what we felt is that, after doing this podcasting for over a year, we thought we should put some shape to the voices.
And we're going to make it a nice shape. Not some saggy baggy one.
No, that's right. No, this is a good shape. And this is all about who are the people behind the voices of Fleur and Sachi.
You're listening to On Garden Design, which is a podcast by Fleur and Sachi. We are two long-time friends and second career garden designers. And today you'll actually hear about who we are. And our plans for the future, in fact, for the podcast too.
That's right. So we hope you're actually going to stay with us and listen to this because we think it's kind of interesting.
No, we just like talking about ourselves, let's face it.
So, maybe we should actually just say to our listeners, how do we meet?
Yeah, that's a good one. So how did we meet, Fleur?
Well, we went to school together.
We did, I know. Yeah. It's a long time ago now.
Yeah, it is, actually.
So we met in Canberra and I joined the school a bit late, so it took me a while to find you.
Yeah.
I had to make a few friends that I had to lose again before I got around to finding the for-lifers.
But I think we just seemed to connect. We just clicked. And there's a couple of things I think that really brought us together, and maybe it was like things like Duke of Edinburgh.
Yes, that's right.
We're both inherently into the outdoors as young people.
That is very true.
So we sought that adventure and the hikes. We just connected really quickly on going on those bushwalks and just being out in nature.
And I can actually remember, do you remember that incident? We did some caving as well, and we were in Bungonia, which is in New South Wales in Australia, has a big limestone cave system. And we were doing it with a group of venturers, primarily males. And I remember we were all standing around and we didn't know who they were. They didn't know who we were. And the first time they sort of did around the roll call by the leader, they got to Fleur Froggatt and Sachi Wimmer, and all of the venturers looked at us with this like, who? What? Do you remember that?
I do remember. I do. And I never thought I had an unusual name until sort of these touch points in life where people were like, what? Who?
That's exactly
And I thought it was perfectly normal because you know what? At our school, and I'm not kidding you, there were 6 other Fleurs in our high school.
Yeah, that's true. It was quite normal. I can guarantee you I've only met Sachi's about twice in my life.
But there are a number of big brand companies called Sachi.
But none of them are really spelt like me except for some handbag and shoe company. I'm sure if you're in Japan, because my name is actually Japanese, it's Sachiko, you will find it.
Right?
Yes, that's right.
That's why you're very happy.
More. I am. Constantly smiling.
That's right. I can make you laugh.
That's right. So it really was our hobbies and interests that brought us together at school. And I guess we were also of a similarly, I don't want to say that we were swats because we weren't swats, but we were ambitious and we were pretty committed to what we were doing. Yeah. We both went on to university, although we took very different paths.
Very different paths. So I went into the Australian Army at 17 years old and came out at about, 28 years later. And really different journey. But, that really played into who I have been, which is really outdoors, adventurous, very physical and also very driven. So
Absolutely.
Loved it. The sort of leadership, opportunity for travel, opportunity for study. It's been a great journey.
Yeah, whereas my journey was quite different because I went into university and did botany because the plants and the environment very much my passion and interest, and then faffed around a bit as you do when you're in your, except for Fleur, she never faffed around. I faffed around in my early 20s, but then ended up in government of all places, which I hadn't actually anticipated, and I began in environmental related roles but ended up actually doing quite different things and spent 25 years as a senior public servant in Canberra. So that was an interesting journey in itself. But we also, our lives connected at different times and then diverged and then connected again.
And probably really reconnected about 10 years ago and just, we really started doing some amazing hikes together.
We did.
A lot of beautiful hikes.
That's very true. And in fact, I can remember when we both sort of went, let's start this hiking bizzo again. Do you remember we actually did, there's a walk in Canberra which is to a local mountain in the Brindabellas. I think it's in the Brindabellas, Mount Gingera.
Yeah.
And that was really our first one. But we didn't do the easy walk to Mount Gingera. We did the hard one.
Oh, yeah.
That just goes up for about 4 kilometres.
That was a really tough up. It was like a staircase to heaven.
That's right.
Yeah.
But we talked the entire time.
Yeah.
And I think that probably characterises our relationship.
Yeah.
We get together and we don't stop talking.
That's it. And you know what my kids always say? How come you and Sachi never run out of things to talk about? It's like, well.
There's limitless opportunity.
That's right. So when you hear the podcast recordings, you're only hearing 30 minutes at a time of the other many, many, many hours of chit-chat that Sachi and I have, which is fabulous because it just makes it, the friendship strong and the bond is there.
It is.
We're going to grow old gracefully as well.
We are. Totally.
So for our listeners, what would you summarise your main hobbies and interests as being?
That's a good question. Gardening, strangely enough.
How about that?
I know.
Perfect.
What do you know? What do you know?
That's lucky.
So gardening, hiking, travel and probably skiing. They're my things.
So what are your key travel sort of destinations? What's the ones, your places that you've just said, oh, that's my go-to?
Oh, I have to say recently, well, not that recently, a couple of years ago, we went to Iceland. That was just spectacular. That had been on my bucket list for many years. And in fact, I had, when I was doing my backpacking days, my year in Europe, I had planned a trip to Iceland. I had even booked it and then I met a bloke. And I was young and silly and kiboshed the trip instead of the bloke.
Plans. Oh, my gosh.
I know.
Well, a shout out to all our listeners from Iceland.
Yes.
Because we do have listeners in Iceland.
We do
and,
indeed.
There you go. It's a beautiful country. So
it sure is. So how about you? What are your key hobbies and interests?
Well, probably sport has been one that's just carried me through my whole life. So, multi-sports, triathlon, extreme adventure racing. So just really, pushing boundaries and I love it. I think I don't think there's a sport I haven't played or haven't participated in. So that's a big part. But on the other side, things like craft.
True.
I'm really crafty.
You have that.
Yeah.
Fleur, I can remember, this is the memory I have of Fleur's handicrafts. I can remember when we were going through year 12 and all the formals were on, that all of a sudden she decided one day she was going to actually sew herself another formal dress, and she just decided that day of the formal to do this. And I can remember you were rushing by the end because you had to cover all those buttons that went up the back.
That's right. Oh, that's a great dress. But I just thought, I don't know, I've always had that ability to look at look at an outfit or try on a full formal dress in a change room and then just copy it.
Yes.
Or just be able to say, oh, I can see how this is made, and then go and make something like that. So I think there's this little element of creativity that probably has come through all the way through my army career, when I used to take my sewing machine everywhere to all the barracks. And I've always found a lot of comfort and joy in things like stitching and sewing and crocheting and all those sort of, lace making.
Yes.
Lace making.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Just little things like that, I thought.
Embroidery.
Just, love it. Love it. It's very relaxing, and, up there is, reading and definitely gardening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'd actually add to my interests because my creative outlet now is ceramics, which I've come back to after many, many years, and I really enjoy that as well. And I think for me, when I was working, gardening was probably my creative outlet because you get to see things grow and you try new things and you experiment all the time as well in a garden.
And, as I listen to you talk and my own journey as well, I can see that probably where we've gone into this second career, garden design, it takes the fact that we've both had a fair bit of life experience and some pretty challenging career milestones, but also this creativity that's just simmered away on the side and this love of the outdoors. So you bring it all together, and that just makes a perfect combination for setting up your own business and being able to relate to people, drive projects ahead, and just get some joy out of being in people's gardens and helping them with design.
Absolutely. So how did you actually end up in landscape design? What brought you there from the army?
Yeah, well, I know. Well, actually my trigger was, I bought a house. Well, actually, really it wasn't a house. It was a
knockdown.
It was a knockdown. So I bought a piece of land, built a house, and then I scratched my head over the garden. I thought, oh, goodness. So this all happened while I was still in the army. And in that process of building a house, and I started thinking about, what do I want in my garden? I went and did a little local night course on design, and I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And then I started to get the bug, and I set about doing my own garden. So I built my own garden, and I loved the process, and I loved all the kind of conversations with landscapers and understanding how to do things myself and learning skills. And then I was back in the army and I just couldn't get my head out of that space, the garden space. So I started to realise that my mind had shifted and my passion had moved, and I had something I really wanted to do, and I wanted to start a new career before I was 50, really. And so I resigned from the army as a colonel and basically enrolled myself into landscape architecture at university with my new best friends that were all like 18 and 19 years old. And so that was the start of my journey, and I've been very methodical and stepped it through education and setting up a business, and here I am.
Fantastic. Yeah. And in fact, it just makes me think that whole, the realisation of priorities changing is such a thing now. People starting to think about, do I really want to be in one career for the rest of my life? Is this really the place I still want to be? What's important to me? And I think that we probably both had that dawning where we just went, maybe we're not where we should be.
I think that's true. And certainly for me, it's been having young children at the time as well. I felt I was travelling so much with my work. I was missing out on a lot, and I wanted to claw back my time. I wanted to reprioritise, relationship into my life rather than my work. And so creating this shift and setting up your own business, you've got different parameters. You can really set your own boundaries, and that's been very empowering.
That flexibility, it's so nice, isn't it? Not actually having to answer to someone else except yourself.
That's so true. I want to be at the pool and, running, going for a jog at 11 o'clock in the day. I don't want to have to do that at, 5 o'clock in the morning before work starts. So
I could relate to that.
It's just wonderful. So for all those sort of long-suffering office workers out there is hope.
Yeah, that's
just
right.
Find your passion
and
do it. And you know what? I have to say I have no regrets. I don't look back and think, oh, gee, I wish I was, working that hard.
Yeah, that's right. In the corporate environment, doing, all of the things
punishing.
that you used to do. Absolutely. Yeah. I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So how about your journey into landscape design?
Yeah, mine was probably a bit different, and it was a bit of a slow dawning that I no longer wanted to do what I was doing. And I had some great opportunities in my job as well. I did some great things, learnt a lot of things, met some great people, had the opportunity also to contribute really, which is the key thing in public service, to really bring some public value. So that was important to me. But for me, it was, again, a bit of what's really important now in my life? What do I want to spend my time doing? Do I really want to have, my phone on 24/7, waiting for the next call or the next disaster to happen and to have to respond to that when perhaps it's not even really a disaster? Not having to manage really large groups of people and organisations, which is stressful. And so for me, that was probably, it took me a while to get there, but eventually just thought, I think I'm ready for a change. And my journey, as you know, has been really very different. Fleur was very fortunate, well, to some extent. She went through a lot of study through COVID where they were offering a lot of online options, so you had the flexibility. Unfortunately now in Australia there's very little online learning available for landscape design. So for me, it's been rather an apprenticeship through a company doing design for them and learning on the job effectively, but also doing a lot of my own research too. I just did not have the resilience to go back to university to do a 4th degree. I'm just beyond that now. I just could not bring myself to do that, particularly because I'm much more interested in residential garden design. I'm not interested in big public space design or working in a big organisation that is doing that kind of work anymore. I really want to be my own boss, and that flexibility that you've just been talking about.
Yeah, it's just wonderful. So then, you've been setting up your business as part of your, on-the-job training kind of, or building up your skill set. So what's your business offer? And tell us about your business name.
Yeah, well, my business name is really a homage to my past. So my business name is the Department of Garden Design, because I figured I needed to own my own department at some point and be the boss of a department. And so really what I am focused on is, and I guess you've probably heard this through the podcast, Fleur and I have quite different styles, and with that comes quite different views, obviously, as well. But my style is it's probably very contemporary. I've got an eye for the environment, and I think my bent is one that is very practical and it's blending the practical with the aesthetic, but it's also looking for the best way to build a garden, blending exotics and natives that make something really sustainable and resilient in our environment. So that's probably the focus of, I guess the style that I do. In terms of the actual things that I do, though, I'm really focused on concept designs, but also doing consultations, helping people visualise their garden when they might need a pick-me-up or an adjustment, or they want to do something themselves, and planting plans, because I'm a very keen plants person as well, built on many years of committed dabbling, you could say, but also understanding in our local environment what works and what doesn't from a lot of trial and error. How about you? Tell us a bit about your business.
Yeah, so I'm Gardens with Fleur. I thought that makes it really personalised, and it just sort of means I can't really pass that business on to anyone else, doesn't it?
It does.
So my neighbours call Fleur.
Oh, there you go.
No, but and the whole idea of that is that I'm always going to be a sole proprietor. I want to work for myself by myself. I do have a number of landscape contractors who build my designs for me. So generally I'll do consultancy, and that can be locally based, sort of Canberra surrounds, locally New South Wales based, but also virtual. I've done a few virtual consultations and designs for clients that are in far reaches of Australia, including Tasmania, actually.
Oh, and that's a great offering, because the thing I haven't mentioned, I might come back to it after, is it's garden design isn't everything I do either, but that virtual capacity with all our online capability now makes things much, much more flexible.
Yeah, it's great. And, really, as a garden designer, you're a problem solver. And you're there to just give people some inspiration and ideas of the possible, the art of the possible, and what they can do in their space. And I think sometimes, like you just said before, some people just need a little bit of encouragement or a bit of just to reframe their thinking about their space, because you can get really stuck in a rut with your own garden. But when someone else independently comes through, and you can do that virtually, you can do it in live, it's just a really good head start for some. So some people just need a consultation, and I love those. And
I would actually add to that, I don't think I know anyone who's as good at talking to anyone as you are.
Oh.
You're very good at just having a chat.
I know, I like people.
I know. You like people a lot more than I like people, I think.
Well, I'm interested in people. And,
yes.
I find, that every client's different, and I find that difference fascinating.
Yep.
And then it gives me an opportunity to understand, or at least offer what might be right for their particular circumstance. So I do enjoy getting to know people.
Yeah, and I do like to do that as well, but I also like to spend the time with the plants and just contemplating the plants and not talking to anyone, if I'm very honest.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
It is.
It's
anyway, back
styles.
to you. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I do the full design service, which is all the design documentations, but I personally don't build anything, but I have landscapers that do. And I do provide a referral and oversight, so I can refer a particular landscaper, and then I can oversee the implementation of the project, which I've only just started doing that, and I find it very satisfying, because then I can actually input throughout the design process. And I do find now that I'm doing that when the implementation happens, it's usually the plan has to be tinkered with. And I like being involved in that process, because I'm happy to tinker with the client, and the client feels a degree of comfort knowing that the plan isn't changing, it's just being improved as you find things along the way, or decisions are made, or new materials surface. And so that's quite exciting. I'm enjoying that. And probably the other one I want to mention is I have been really working on developing what I call Style Card. It's a new offering for my business, and it's kind of like a templated solution that's based on particular styles. Now, I've done cottage gardens, and I'm about to put that onto my website, and I'm developing other styles, but I'll just see how cottage goes first. And it's interesting that, I developed this quite a few months ago, and in the last few months I've actually used the templates myself, because I've done so much thinking about it, into my gardens that I'm designing that are cottage based. So, it's got all the combinations of materials and plants, accessories, layouts and all that. So for people who don't necessarily want to engage a designer but want all the design thinking, that might be a really good one for them. And I'll put on more as I develop them, but they take quite a while to develop.
I'm sure they do. That'll be a really interesting, experiment to begin with, to see how you go.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll see how that goes. All righty. So I guess then leading on to just sort of unpacking a bit more about you, what are your sources of inspiration? So maybe people, maybe places, maybe activities. What are things that kind of inspire you, not just necessarily to be a great garden designer, but in everything you sort of look at in your sort of whole scope of being?
Yeah. So for me, hiking and travel are probably my greatest sources of inspiration, and that ability, or at least the attempt, to bring back some of what I might be seeing or experiencing elsewhere into my space and also my designs. I'm a really visual person, and so even all the scrolling you do on social media, if I see things I like, I'll go, I'm forever filing things that I, save and like to refer to down the track when I see that it would be a great place to put something, and to draw on those kind of elements of inspiration. I think, look, I'm such a visitor of botanic gardens when I travel.
Yes.
Some of those new plants, new ways of using plants. And in fact, last year at Christmas, we spent time in New Zealand and visited, I'm trying to remember which botanic gardens they were. I can't remember, but I'll put
Christchurch.
No, it wasn't Christchurch. No, because we were on the North Island.
Oh, okay.
So it was somewhere just south of Auckland. But they were the most spectacular gardens I've been to in a long time. And I have been to Kew.
Oh, yes.
So,
yes.
They really were outstanding in how they'd been put together. A huge amount of inspiration coming out of that. And I think I was texting Fleur madly as I was walking through going, you should be here.
Oh, love it.
So they're probably my key areas of inspiration. How about you?
I think I'm mostly inspired by people I know. So I'm big on people, like friends and family and designers, other designers that I know. I tend to be more focused on people I know, because I find there's a whole personality and relationship thing behind people I know, as opposed to someone who I've just seen in a magazine or a book. So I find that there's so much more to a designer than just what they're producing. It's their whole background, their personality. I mean, one of the things I really enjoyed was going on it was called the Life-Changing Garden Design Tour to South Island, New Zealand last year with Michael McCoy, who many people would know as the host of Dream Gardens. It was a series done in Australia. And just being able to, I've always admired his style, but just being able to unpack the personality behind that and ask the questions and have the discussions and really engage in that relationship side of it, I just found that was inspirational. And also the other people on those kind of tours, because they're like-minded folk who are interested in gardens. They might not be designers, but they all see the joy in being in gardens together. And I find that being part of a small group like that was just terrific. So, yeah, it's probably that's my kind of people inspiration. As far as places, I just love anywhere that's beach. I'm a beach girl at heart, and I love the surf and I love warm weather.
Which is why you live in Canberra, right? That makes so much sense.
I have a kind of my heart I leave at the beach. I just go back and check it every so often. I love it. And activities, I think really it comes down to, keeping myself fit and healthy, sport and hiking and stuff, but also guided garden travel. That's what I want to do more of. I find that really inspirational. There you go. Well, we are, in October this year, we are going to the Mediterranean Garden Society tour in Adelaide. And just doing more of that. I just love that idea.
Absolutely. And we are both lucky because our partners are both keen photographers. So even though they are not necessarily into gardens, when we travel, they are taking nice photos of the stuff that matters to us as well, which is really useful.
Useful for Instagram posts. It makes us look good.
Totally. And you'll know when I'm posting something that my partner's taking a photo of because he's a way better quality than mine.
No, it's all good. It means he gets to hone his skills and you get to use the photos.
Yes, that is true. So the question for me is, what do you think your previous experience is bringing to you and your business as a landscape designer?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think particularly in the Army, there's very much a lot of focus on leadership and people and understanding people and bringing people with you on a journey. And so I find in that immediate relationship, setting up a relationship with a client, I'm about that, bringing that person on a journey with me. It's quite a personal journey and really understanding that dynamic. And the other side of it is being organised. And, when you say you're going to be somewhere, you're there. and you're there organised. Like I've already done my...
We're the antithesis to the tradie. Yeah, doesn't turn up.
Right. So I am very punctual, and I turn up and I have already done my map reconnaissance. I know I've got a plan of the site. I've got all my questions ready to go, and I want to really maximise that time so it's time well spent. And so being organised, being efficient, having a contract where I actually deliver. So those are the things I think that bring from my previous career into where I am now, and I think that's worked really well.
Yeah, I think that does sound like it's worked really well. I think I'm probably very similar too. We often have the conversation when shit has gone down, for want of a better expression. We go, gee, I'm glad you were in that and it wasn't someone else, because we just know that we can rely on each other and that we have very similar motivators and values when it comes to that.
Discipline, self-discipline.
Yeah, that's right. But also that ability to work with people that comes from, leading and knowing what leadership is about and how to engage with people and empower them and bring them with you. I think, though, the other thing that certainly has been something that I've brought, I'm a very practical person. So I've done a lot of stuff in my career where taking conceptual ideas and bringing them to making sure that they're practical to implement. And I think I do the same in my garden design. So I'm looking not just for the aesthetic, but I'm also really thinking about how does this work in practice?
Yeah.
So that it's really, useful, it's utilitarian, but gee, it looks good as well.
Yeah, and the big question you always ask yourself is, can it be built?
Yes, exactly.
It's easy to have ideas, but if they're not feasible, and they're also way out of budget.
That's right. Then, it doesn't help anyone. And I think because the thing that I probably haven't mentioned is that I'm in that portfolio career space now where I do a range of things, and I actually spend a lot of my time executive coaching. And so a lot of my thinking about how people lead, what they do, how you engage with relationships, again, that's back to that. How do you deal with a client? How are you thinking about how you take them with you, how you're responding to them, how you're engaging with them? There's a lot of that that goes on as well.
Yeah, kind of life skills, aren't they?
They are. And things that I think a mature person often with experience bring, because we're not learning that anymore.
Yeah.
Although we are always learning. I have to say that I am always learning, and that's probably what I like most about having changed career is that I'm on a whole new learning journey. Yeah. And I really enjoy learning, and I really enjoy challenges. Yeah. Although there is a frustration with being, a numpty when it comes to starting again.
But nobody needs to know that.
No, that's true. That's true. I'll just keep that to myself.
There you go. Well, Val, I think that's a really good segue into talking about the future of our podcast.
Absolutely.
And I say the segue because it's this has been an amazing learning journey for us. So when Sachi and I set up the podcast, we had a number of kind of, reasons for doing it. And we always said if the reasons weren't giving or, fulfilling, then we wouldn't do it. And so one of those was about professional development.
Yes.
So because it's this idea that if you have to teach something, you become so good at it yourself, or you have to do the research. And, when we're both working on our own, for ourselves, you have to keep yourself fresh.
You do.
So if we get together like this and we banter over things, we're actually really learning.
Absolutely.
And I've enjoyed that aspect of it immensely.
And also forcing you to do a bit of research each time we talk so you don't sound like you don't know what you're talking about, that discipline.
And that's preparing you for all those hard questions I keep throwing at you.
Right, exactly.
Because at least in the podcast, no one can see your face.
I know, when I'm just like, oh my God, what is she sending me this one for? So, and one of the other things was that we wanted to, we needed to get joy out of this to continue to do it as well. So what does all this mean for the future?
Yeah, well, I think we've been broadcasting for it'll be about a year and a half.
That's right.
Just under a year and a half. And you know what? It's been such a good journey, but I do feel that we've met our milestones, learnt so much, no regrets, but we've probably come to the end of the series as we've delivered it. So it's time to pause, reflect, and maybe relaunch into a different style.
That's exactly right. So this is really, I guess, we're just going to put things into abeyance for a while, contemplate how we might take things forward. We'd love your ideas if you have, a view on what else we could do or how else we could do things, because we do want to keep it fresh. I think we're both at the point, we've had some challenges with our podcasting studio access, which has been a bit of a drama. We had some plans to bring in some more interviews, But unfortunately, they decided to refurbish the podcast studio that we were using.
And then they found asbestos.
That's right.
So it's all been delayed.
It has. So it's been a bit of a challenge to keep going. So, and we're both pretty busy in our day lives as well. So we need a bit of a break.
Yeah, we do, because, you know, it all looks like fun, and it is. It's fun, but it is a lot of logistics behind podcasting.
There
so
sure is.
We're just going to take a pause, and so don't think this will be our last episode, but it will be our last regular episode for now. And what we'd really love is if you are interested in certain topics or a certain theme or a projection that we could take in the future, do let us know.
And I think what we're going to basically leave you with is watch this space.
Yeah, watch this space. And actually, let me just give some fun facts because, you know, after just over a year of podcasting, we have listeners from 79 countries. That just blows my mind.
It sure does.
And it's been so fun to know that our reach is across
so wide
everywhere. And you know,
that's half the world.
Yeah. Yeah, well, pretty much. There's a few more countries than that. But it's been fascinating to see the statistics because less than half our listeners are from Australia.
Yes, that's amazing, particularly given that we are so Australian.
Yeah, and I think that's so fun. But the other one I want to mention, and this is something, a statistic I love watching, and that is we have in the United States of America, right, 50 states, we have listeners from 48 states. Can you believe that?
Shout out to everyone in the US.
48 states out of 50. I am so thrilled about that. But what I really want to challenge anyone in the US, if you happen to go to Wyoming or to North Dakota, they are the only two states we don't have listeners. So please go there or tell someone, a friend of yours, to listen from those states because I want to get 50 states.
First target to hit the entire of the US. Yep. And I guess I just wanted to shout out to all our followers because we have a fantastic group of followers. We get some lovely comments in from all of you and also from those people who aren't necessarily following us. Thank you so much for engaging with us. It's been really appreciated and it keeps us going.
It does. And the other thing I'm getting a lot of pleasure out of is those who do shout us a coffee on ko-fi.com. The link is in our Instagram, and you can find us on ko-fi.com on garden design. And for those who buy us a coffee, they also usually give us, comment, a bit of a story, and I love it. It's really fun. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts or stomachs, maybe you could say. We've really enjoyed that, and it just sort of gives us a bit of a buzz on what we do. It makes us feel appreciated. So that's been a nice touch.
So I think we're probably signing off for now, and I'm going to say so long and thanks for all the fish rather than actually saying goodbye because it's really a watch this space.
That's it. Watch this space. We've had a lot of fun and we look forward to coming back. Maybe we'll do sort of random one-off episodes every so often. So don't unfollow us. Hang in there and we'll be in touch when we relaunch.
We will indeed. We'll see you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye.